other labor concerns. It can be very tricky to fire employees in some countries. After a, say, 90-day probationary period, if you decide to keep an employee that you have hired, it may be necessary to go through weeks or months of paperwork or proceedings to terminate that employee. Operating in the United States, obviously it's not the case. You can lose your job in the blink of an eye in the United States. It's not the same in other countries. So if you go and hire a whole bunch of people thinking that your operations are going to do very well, and if, say for example, you run into some obstacle, you need to free up some capital, so you decide to lay off some people, you may be running into some serious problems in terminating those people. Again, this goes back to that state employee-employer tripod. You would have to adhere to a set of framework to work it out. There may be weird laws in your host country. I've heard that in France they have a right to light law, or employees are required to have access to light by working near a window or something along those lines. I don't know. I tried, Googling it. Didn't really come up with anything. But for the United States, that's not a requirement. You can work in a room that has no windows and everything's fine. So perhaps you would have some laws that you're not used to when you're entering into these new markets. Maybe recruiting requirements set by the government. Also, you could put there as a subnote, there may be opportunities set by the government. One idea that comes to mind is the DeLorean factory that they built, I believe, Northern Ireland. So, they got all kinds of tax benefits for opening up their plant there. So that's another concern. There are opportunities. There may be some kind of recruiting requirements. You have to hire a certain percentage of people that are that have this ethnic background, or you may have to hire a total of 500 people, something along those lines. Sometimes you would need to have some kind of a supervisory board. So if you have a certain number of employees, you have to hire some kind of a supervisor. So there are a lot of requirements that may be placed on your employment options. So consider that. I put here some examples of corporate business models. Two that I dug up here are Keiretsu, I believe that's how you pronounce it, in Japan, which are more or less groups of companies that work together. So they're extremely well-defined business relationships where the companies each have some kind of aspect in the integration of their system. So it's a system of companies that work together to produce goods and services. The other is Chaebol, I believe that's how you pronounce it, in South Korea, which are companies that are often sponsored by the government, and that they work hand in hand on many projects with the government, but are more or less congruent to what we would consider conglomerates, like, for example, GE. So they're big in South Korea. Some that come to mind are Hyundai, LG, Samsung, things like that. And actually, through the use of these Chaebols and the development of the South Korean business environment, it makes them makes them more, it keeps them more involved with trade negotiations and things like that with North Korea. Moving on. Okay, connecting the dots. Global Expansion Ideas 2010, actions. So you can see here, it's a magic screen. Pee Wee Herman, connect the dots. So you have an idea that you want to take global, and you have a country picked out that you want to expand into. What now? Here's the basic guide to going global. Write up a business plan on paper. That's what you got to do. You need to have a marketing plan, a strategic plan, a financial plan. You need to know whom is your team comprised of. What obstacles may be in your way. Again, that's what we've been going over with for the last 6 weeks. What is your exit strategy? I would say that's key. Once you're done with the project, how are you getting out of this country? Or if you plan to stay there, what's the next step? Realize that you are taking the entrepreneurial avenue and that you have inherent risk. Let's just face it, you're entering a new market. That's a whole new set of circumstances, a whole new set of risk that you're taking on. It may not work out. Be prepared for that. Realize that, I just went over that. Find an investor to back your plan. Shop it out. Find someone who has the financial substance to make your plan work. And then just do it. Items to consider in your planning. You will likely need to translate everything into your host country's native languages. So start by finding a good translator with affordable rates and establish a relationship. Your business plans, all that we just went over a second ago, probably needs to be completely translated into local language, maybe local currencies, local format, all that. Your user documentation needs to be all translated. Anything that you would have that is going with that product needs to be translated. Community support. If you have your community support on a forum or something along those lines, you make sure that you have access to that information so it can be translated into these other languages. The actual product features. Are you selling cereal boxes? Cereal boxes need to be in that language. Are you selling batteries? All text needs to be translated. Whatever you're selling, it needs to have the language obviously in it. What are the requirements as far as food and drink? If you're going to be selling food and drink there, do you need to have some kind of dietary facts like the United States requires? So you need to work out all that back end stuff. Find someone that has first-hand experience in the market you're entering and bring them on board. That's a priceless piece of information. Find someone who knows it. Find someone who knows a culture, who's done a market entry there. You know, they can tell you all about it. You can say, hey, this is what I encountered. You know, my experience so far has taught me that this, that, and the other thing. Maybe you can find someone local to help you. It'd be great if you could call someone on the phone, arrange to have that person kind of do your legwork while you're working in your home market still, so that they can, you know, if you need some documentation, they'll go to the agency and get it, email it off to you, and you have it, something along those lines.